Hello, my friends. First things first, we need a beverage. We're drinking ginger lime poppy. It's by far the best flavor, in my opinion. You just always have to be part of everything, don't you? This video is about me, it's not about you. You're always trying to take over. So, I was thinking and I realized that I have never sat down on my YouTube channel and actually shared my cancer and infertility story. I've just shared our surrogacy journey, and I realized that a lot of you guys probably don't even know why we're on a surrogacy journey. This is a huge part of my life. This has been something that changed the whole trajectory of my life. It's very intertwined with my testimony and my relationship with God. I want to give you a brief overview of my faith journey growing up because, like I said, my cancer and infertility story is very much also my testimony. To give you an idea, I grew up in a Christian household. My parents are both Christians. I was raised in church my entire life. So it was always very much a part of my life. I prayed the prayer, got saved when I was 7 years old, and I got baptized shortly after that. But the thing about me is I was a very headstrong child, and I had no desire to be different than that. I had a very strong desire to experiment. I had a very strong desire to be accepted by the people around me, and I was willing to do whatever it took to be accepted. That's a brief background on who I was and what I knew about God up until the point when I turned 17. I was going into my senior year of high school. It was 2012, and at the beginning of the school year, I told my mom that I was having some weird things going on, and immediately her red flags went up. She was like, we need to go to the doctor because that's not normal. And so, to spare you the details, I won't go into that, but just know if you're having anything outside of the norm, you should always get it checked out. Don't delay, get it checked out. I went to the doctor and I was absolutely shaking in my boots. I was so terrified to go to the gynecologist for the first time. It should not be a traumatic experience. The norm is not traumatic. My experience was, however, quite traumatic because of what was going on with me. And so I went in and had a pelvic exam done. It was extremely painful. It should not be painful. Uncomfortable, sure. Painful, no. Right away, the doctor was like, yeah, something is not right here. He mentioned a couple things that it could be, but it did not seem like a serious matter. About a week or two later, we got a call and he wanted us to come in and talk to him. So right away, this seems like it could be something serious. I will never forget that day, ever. I was sitting in English class. My parents called to check me out of school. I went out to my parents' car. I didn't expect both of them to be in the car, so that was kind of this like moment of, man, like what is going on? The car ride to the doctor was silent. The anxiety in the vehicle was like palpable. As we got to the hospital property where the doctor office was, we were like going down the main road right next to it. We were about to like get off. I will never forget this moment. I'd never experienced anything like this before. This wave of, if I could describe it physically to you, it would be a warmth and a heavy weight, but not like a uncomfortable weight, like a warm weighted blanket is what it felt like in a physical sense. Came over my entire body, and in an instant, I knew that I was about to go in that doctor's office and they were gonna tell me I had cancer. I can't explain to you how I knew that. It was like this immediate feeling of indescribable peace accompanied this like knowledge that was dropped into my brain. And it wasn't an audible voice. It wasn't like that. It was just I now know was a revelation from the Holy Spirit, and it was God's presence that I was feeling. And in that moment, it felt like everything that I was taught my entire life went from here to here. It just felt like this revelation of, this is God. This is what I've learned about my whole life, but didn't really understand. I wasn't really searching for him. I was living my own way. I was living 100% for the world and for myself. And in that moment, that was just this shift. He reached his hand out to me and was like, no, you're mine now. And it literally changed the trajectory of my life forever. I cannot stress that enough. And I also want to say, this isn't everyone's experience with the Lord. Everyone's testimony is different. Everyone's experience is different. It's always going to align with what the Bible says about God, so don't get confused there. The Bible is truth. So this happens, and of course, we go into this doctor's office, and the doctor comes in, and he tells us, your pap smears showed malignant cells. It's pretty clear that you have a tumor on your cervix. We are unsure what type of cancer. We will have to biopsy the tumor to know what kind of cancer it is, but most likely it's this type of cancer. And I don't remember the name that he gave, but he was like, it's more of a childhood cancer. Because I was 17, he was like, it doesn't make sense for you to have cervical cancer because, you know, patients that we see that present cervical cancer are in their 40s and 50s. They are positive for HPV. I was HPV negative. So he was like, yeah, it's, you know, we can pretty much rule that out, and it's probably going to be this other cancer, but I don't know for sure. I'm not an oncologist. So we need to send you to a cancer specialist. And so my tumor was like a golf ball, essentially. I had, you know, a PET scan, a CAT scan. They didn't see any metastases, like if they couldn't see anything else anywhere else in my body, just that tumor on my cervix, which, praise the Lord, it seemed very isolated into that spot. And so I had a procedure. They took a biopsy of the tumor, and it did come back as adenocarcinoma of the cervix with clear cell properties. I don't know if that, I may not be saying the medical terminology right, so sorry. And so this was an anomaly. This was like not heard of. You know, fast forward, I get established there. They come up with a treatment plan. They decide the first thing to do is to remove this tumor and to mitigate the risk of recurrence or metastases. They wanted to go ahead and do a hysterectomy. My ovaries were going to be transposed up in case I needed radiation on my pelvis. About a year and a half later, I started having pain in my right side, like chronic pain. I didn't know what was going on. I was bloated a lot. Went in for a CT scan. They saw like a 7-centimeter mass that was touching my colon and liver. And so the radiologist was like, this looks like a cancerous mass. So of course we were like, holy crap, what's going on? And then, so I had an emergency laparotomy. So essentially they just opened up my abdominal cavity to look around, and they could see it was actually an ovarian cyst that had hemorrhaged, and my entire ovary on my right side was just overtaken by cysts. And so they ended up removing my right ovary. Of course, the priority always was to maintain my fertility in the sense that I would be able to retrieve eggs and fertilize them and eventually have biological children. It's just kind of funny to see how God just so intricately designed me, because I have always had such an open mind when it came to how I wanted to build a family one day. When all of this went down, I felt such a strong pull and also peace around the idea of surrogacy. I never knew what surrogacy was until all of this happened in my life. And I remember meeting a girl that was local, or a woman. She was quite a bit older than me. And she was also one of my doctor's patients who had a child via surrogacy. And so I got to actually meet in person with her and just hear her story. And she had written a book. And I just immediately was like, okay, like, I know that this is something that we will pursue eventually. I felt peace around that. And I wasn't, anywhere close to marriage. I wasn't thinking about having kids. So it was kind of just a weird time of like, I know that God's up to something and I know he has a plan for me. I feel peace around that, but I have no idea what that looks like, you know? And so fast forward, eventually I meet my husband, we get married, and, you know, we had talked a lot about, you know, when would we pursue surrogacy, but I always had this like strong feeling that we would have a really strong relationship with our surrogate, and that God would make it very clear when we were supposed to take our first step towards that. And so we had seen my fertility doctor a couple of times, but had never actually pulled the trigger to do anything. And in 2019, I went to the gynecologist one day just for my normal annual visit, and I normally would get my hormone levels checked because, you know, my ovary most likely is going to stop functioning earlier than normal, like earlier than menopause age. I went in for my annual visit, had my hormone levels checked, and my estrogen was low. And so my doctor told me, or she asked me, she was like, have you been to the fertility clinic? Have you, preserved eggs yet? Are you doing anything in that department? And I said, no, I've just prayed a lot about it, and I just have felt very strongly that God would make it clear when it's time. And she said, it's time. It actually ended up taking many months to actually be able to retrieve eggs because my cycle is so all over the place. I was having to get labs and ultrasounds done literally multiple times a week for weeks, months. It was just such a frustrating time. But finally in March 2020, right when the pandemic hit, we retrieved eggs and froze our embryos. And so that was the start. I made this whole video and posted it kind of announcing that we were searching for a surrogate because, like I said, I always had this strong feeling I'm going to have a strong relationship with my surrogate. And so the idea of going through a surrogacy agency was something that I was super closed off to. We posted that video, it was maybe like a week later, and someone that we knew reached out and said that they wanted to be our surrogate and felt called to do it. And we went through this whole process with her, and going through surrogacy independently, aka not using an agency, you don't have anyone guiding you. And surrogacy is a very complicated process, and it differs from state to state, country to country. It's extremely complicated. Without going into too much detail, that did not work out, and that was devastating. And that's just the first of setback after setback that we have experienced. But can I tell you that the Lord is so faithful and so intentional, and every setback that we have had has revealed such an amazing purpose, and the Lord has been so good to bring so much good out of disappointment and heartache. Fast forward, the journey falls through in 2021. We decided we're just going to take a step back from this. We're going to push pause. We're going to just really dive into running our business and focusing on work and traveling and doing all the things we want to do. I don't think we were ready for what we were actually going to experience in surrogacy. I'm like, if we had experienced what we've experienced in the last 2 years prior, we would have not been spiritually prepared for that at all. So the Lord is so faithful in his timing. Part of it was like I said, I was closed off to using an agency. So I was just like, no, someone is going to do this for us. What I thought was a calling from the Lord was actually a closed offness in me, and it was a selfish desire that I had, and an expectation that I had that wasn't actually God's plan. And I was holding real tightly onto that, like real freaking tight. I'm a wedding videographer and photographer, so it's funny how God used this thing that I was focused so hard on. When I tell you, me and my husband were idolizing work. We were idolizing our business. Sometimes God has to show up and shake you to be like, hey, look, I'm trying to do something, but you're over here like obsessing over something that has nothing to do with me. In 2022, I got an inquiry from a couple, and in the email they said, hey, we're looking for a videographer because we are planning a really quick wedding because we are expecting a baby via surrogate. And I remember reading that email and being like, it's just such a rarity, right? And so we got on this consultation call with this couple and talked so much about surrogacy and not that much about their wedding. But I asked them so many questions, and of course, they had gone through an agency and had an incredible experience. Their surrogate came to the wedding. She was super pregnant with their baby, and I got to film, their whole story, and then also film, these interactions with their surrogate and see just how beautiful their relationship was. I got to see it with my own eyes. And it's just cool. Like, the Lord needed me to see those things so that I would be open to his plan for me. So we reached out to the same agency and we did a call with them and immediately felt at peace. Yes, we need to do this. We were told that the average time to match with a surrogate was 12 to 15 months. And we matched in a month, which is just insane. We built such an incredible relationship with this woman and her husband. They are believers as well. You can go and watch all of the videos from our surrogacy journey. All of that is documented, so you can go to the playlist that I have to see that whole journey unfold. Long story short, we went through a journey with them for about a year and a half, and we did get pregnant with a baby girl, and we ended up losing her at, we found out at almost 10 weeks. And that was devastating and wasn't our plan, right? Not what we wanted. But man, is the Lord so faithful. I remember being so mad and thinking, God, was all of this just a waste? Like, why? Why did you put us on this path and allow us to get this far and just take it away? I just did not understand. I don't have all of the answers, but what I can say is that the Lord healed us. Jesus was so close to us in those days of deepest grief I have ever experienced in my life. The way that I and my husband have grown spiritually through that, I can't even put it into words. Our doctor told us that we needed to find a new surrogate. It was not medically advised for us to continue with the same woman. And so, we went to our agency, let them know we needed to rematch. Would you believe that when we were on that call with the agency, our coordinator said, we already have someone for you. And we knew when we met her that she would be such a great fit for you guys. That is God. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So we did match with them, started the journey back in October. And here we are, just weeks away from hopefully doing an embryo transfer with her. That's such a brief overview of everything that's happened in my cancer and infertility journey. I could talk for hours and hours. I am writing a book about this. It's just a dream, but I am writing. My life dream is to write a book about this whole story because I just feel so blessed that the Lord finds me worthy to walk this story out. I'm thankful that God has allowed me to go through everything that I have because I believe that He started a testimony and a story when I was 17 that He is continuing to write, and I believe it's going to be such an incredible story of His faithfulness, and I believe that there are going to be people that see who He is through it. What I have learned over the last 12 and a half years of my life is that the Lord is good. The Lord is faithful. He sees me, He hears me, and He loves me. I cannot stress to you enough that when you give your life to Jesus, everything changes. That doesn't mean that your circumstances get better necessarily. That doesn't mean that life gets easier. It doesn't get easier. But He changes your vision. He changes the way you see life. You may not realize it, but there is a God-shaped void in your soul that until you find Jesus, you will search to the ends of the earth for fulfillment, and you won't find it. There is nothing and no one like Jesus. So that's my story. I pray that this finds the right people. I pray it encourages someone. I am excited to continue to share more about surrogacy and fertility and just encourage you that there is beauty in the stories of brokenness, because God takes brokenness and creates beauty. Beauty from ashes. He does. I've seen it in my life. I see it in my friends' lives, in my family's lives, and I've seen his hand move time and time and time and time again. And I'm just thankful that I get to be a part of it.